have you.
And there's the problem.
I'm a telepath, Scott, I know.
Got a little memory problem.
The episode opens with Wolverine telling Cyclops that he cannot keep running after Jean, who disappeared some time ago, if he wants to remain on the team. Despite not wanting to give up on her, Cyclops knew that he could not abandon his friends. In the present time, the X-Men find themselves in the middle of a battle with Juggernaut. With his mind wandering, Cyclops gets thrown around by Juggernaut until Wolverine rushes to his aid. Iceman checks up on Cyclops, who assures him that he is okay. At the same time, Kurt, who is also known as the Nightcrawler, jumps on top of Juggernaut and manages to distract him long enough for Iceman to use ice to keep Juggernaut steady. Wolverine then shouts at Cyclops and asks him to attack Juggernaut. He quickly blasts Juggernaut with his laser, causing him to go flying back into a building. However, this is not enough to keep him down, and he quickly gets back up again. As he picks up a car to throw at the X-Men, Cyclops, who was still thinking about Jean, sees her coming out of the smoke. As soon as he loses focus, Juggernaut throws the car at him. Luckily, Wolverine is just as fast and manages to push Cyclops out of the way. Sometime later, Cyclops wakes up to find himself in the medical bay. What surprises him the most is seeing Jean standing over him, asking if he is all right. He quickly gets up and kisses her, only to find that it is Emma. As he starts apologizing, Emma assures him that she knows what he is going through since she is a telepath. Convinced that he really saw Jean, he tries to convince Emma of it until she firmly tells him that Jean is gone, and it is his mind playing tricks. He then asks Emma what happened, and she tells him that he and Wolverine were the ones who took the brunt of Juggernaut's attack, claiming that although Wolverine saved him, Juggernaut was able to walk away. Feeling helpless, Cyclops decides that he no longer belongs on the team and packs his bags to leave. Emma tries to stop him from leaving by offering to erase his memories of Jean, but he turns her offer down, claiming that he does not want to be haunted by missing pieces from his brain, just like Wolverine. Emma promises not to let him suffer any longer, and Cyclops agrees. The next morning, the two of them sit by the ocean, and Emma delves into his memories to see when Jean came into his life. As Cyclops guides Emma into his memories, she sees a young Scott waking up in a hospital bed with Dr. Brooks watching over him. Scared and lonely, Scott begins asking for his parents, only for Dr. Brooks to inform him that he and his family were involved in a plane crash, and that he and his brother are the only ones who survived. When Scott asks to see his brother Alex, he is told that Alex had to go and live with another family since he had been in a coma for the past 2 years. In the present, Cyclops tries to push Emma away, claiming that those memories have nothing to do with Jean. She tells him that it must be connected to her since he has been the one guiding her. As they continue, a grown-up Scott, who had been forced to spend the majority of his childhood at the Omaha Meadows orphanage, is seen leaving the building. As he is walking out, he bumps into 2 men and walks away. This does not sit well with them, and they decide to confront him for not apologizing to them. When they start beating Scott up, he lashes out and uses his powers for the first time. Caught off guard, Scott tries to scream for help, but only ends up making things worse for himself as he unintentionally uses his powers to damage the orphanage. Because of this, he is arrested, blindfolded, and placed in solitary confinement, until one day he hears someone calling out to him as the door to his cell opens up. The man introduces himself as Professor Charles Xavier. He tells Scott that this is only the beginning of a very important journey for him. Somehow he manages to convince Scott that he is not a monster and takes him to a facility where he trains every day to control his powers. One day, Scott has a particularly hard day as he is unable to push through the challenges that Professor X threw his way. Feeling hopeless, Scott tells Professor X that he is no superhero and does not belong with the X-Men. Seeing that Scott needs a little push, he offers to take him on a drive. Sometime later, the two of them drive past floating cars to meet a friend of his. Soon, they arrive at the house of John Gray, where Scott meets his daughter, Jean Grey, for the first time. John informs Professor X that Jean has been out of control ever since a friend of his named Eric came to meet her. Immediately, on alert, he tells John that Eric now goes by the name of Magneto and wants to assemble a team of powerful mutants. Claiming that he will be back again, only this time he will not wait to talk and instead will take Jean against her will. Convinced that his daughter will be able to take care of herself, John claims that she will be able to stop him. However, Professor X tells him that her powers are too unstable and she won't last in front of him. Although hesitant, John agrees when Jean tells him that she wants to live at the facility with them. While the adults are talking, both Scott and Jean make eye contact and begin what is later going to be an unbreakable bond. A few days after Jean arrives at the facility, the X-Men find themselves up against Magneto, who insists that he needs her. He tells Professor X that he has been suppressing Jean's powers and will never let her reach her full potential. However, Professor X tells him that it is because he sees her as a person and not a weapon. Despite this, Magneto attacks the mutants and tells Jean that she can put an end to the battle if she joins his team. All of the mutants fight together as a team to counter all of Magneto's attacks, but when Scott loses his special glasses in the middle of the fight, it is Jean who encourages him to open his eyes and continue fighting Magneto. As a team, they manage to take him down. After this, Scott and Jean became inseparable, making him feel as if nothing that happened to him mattered anymore. In the present, Emma realizes that Jean took all of his pain away, but something happened that changed everything. Scott reveals that it was because of Wolverine. When Wolverine joined the X-Men, he noticed Jean and became intrigued. At the same time, Jean became interested in him as well, but this did not sit well with Scott, who was still in love with her. Which is why one night he attacked Wolverine, but he refused to fight back. He claimed that he was not going to fight Scott over a girl. Getting angrier by the second, Scott once again attacked Wolverine until Jean came running out and took his side. She revealed that she had made Wolverine promise that he was not going to fight Scott. Over the next few days, Scott spent his time trying to make up with Jean, but she refused to change her mind until he apologized to Wolverine. Just as he turns around to apologize, he hears both the Professor and Jean grabbing their heads and screaming in pain. As the memories fade, Scott realizes that they missed something in the explosion that caused Jean to disappear. Emma plays the same memories for him again, but slower. This is when they notice that no one attacked the X-Men and that it was Jean who caused the explosion. This episode opens up after Emma and Scott discover that Jean was the one who caused the explosion. As a result of the explosion that made Jean disappear, Professor X was heavily injured and remained comatose. In a dystopian future, some 20 years after the explosion, Professor X worked with a small team of mutants, much like the X-Men, to fight against a world that had been overrun by Sentinels. Part of the team was Bishop and Marrow. While Bishop and Professor X were busy elsewhere, Marrow took this as an opportunity to work with a reprogrammed Sentinel named Rover. As he attacks another Sentinel, Bishop appears behind them and reminds Marrow why they cannot trust another robot. However, Professor X is not as pessimistic and tells Bishop to relax. Back in the present time, Scott and Wolverine gather inside the medical bay where Professor X's comatose body is being kept, and call out to him. Meanwhile, in the future, Professor X receives a telepathic message from Wolverine and tells his friends to go ahead without him while he tends to something important. To his surprise, he discovers that both Wolverine and Scott have appeared together to send him a message. Scott tells him that he took a stroll down memory lane with Emma and discovered something about the explosion that did not sit quite well with him. Professor X decides to take a look for himself and discovers that Jean had caused the explosion. Scott immediately tries to defend Jean, claiming that it could have been a trick of the eyes, but Professor X tells him that he has seen the same kind of fire before. He tells the two X-Men that this proves that Jean plays a far greater role in their fates than they realized. When Wolverine asks him where he has seen the fire before, Professor X reveals that he saw it in the memories of Magneto's daughter, Lorna. She was one of the few people who saw what ravaged the world before it was taken over by the Sentinels. A fire that resembled a phoenix quickly spread and destroyed the world as they once knew it. As soon as Scott realizes what Professor X has insinuated, he becomes angry, claiming that there is no way that Jean was responsible for an apocalypse. Before he can finish talking, he freezes. Professor X turns to Wolverine and tells him that the two of them need to talk in private. He then tells Wolverine that Jean's true powers only make an appearance when she lashes out in times of great stress, claiming that he is sure that the war is what made Jean lash out, which is why stopping the war may also stop Jean from starting an apocalypse. When Wolverine expresses his hesitance over his new mission, Professor X tells him that he needs to do whatever is necessary to stop Jean. After their telepathic meeting ends, Wolverine tells Scott that he and the other X-Men are going to try and save the world, and he should figure out if he wants to join them again or not. At the same time in the future, Marrow tries to teach Rover how to speak words other than destroy, but fails miserably. All of a sudden, Rover alerts her to trackers at the perimeter. She tells Rover to hide while she warns the rest of the mutants. As they initiate lockdown, Vanisher goes to find Bishop and Professor X, only to discover that Professor X has been spotted by the trackers. Somehow, he and Bishop manage to get him away in time, but the trackers notice where they are headed and follow after them. Marrow, who had refused to get inside the cave with the rest of the mutants, nervously watches the trackers roaming around. Luckily, she does not get spotted, but angrily tells Professor X that ever since he joined them, they have found themselves as a target of Master Mold. Bishop stops her and sends her away before she can do any harm. Once she leaves, Bishop asks Professor X if Wolverine has been able to make any progress. Professor X tells him that he has been able to delay the way, but has not been able to stop it. He reveals that the countdown to 0 hour has already begun, and Wolverine needs to figure out the moment before the fires light up the sky. At that moment, Bishop tells him that he has an idea and takes him close to the detention center. He reveals that the last time he was inside, he saw a data center that might contain records dating back to its creation. Professor X asks him how they will bring something out of the center undetected, to which Bishop responds by saying they will use Rover as a distraction. When Marrow hears this, she refuses to let Rover be used as bait, but Bishop does not give her a choice. Sometime later, the Vanisher teleports everyone inside the detention center while Marrow waits outside, waiting for Bishop's signal to use Rover as a distraction. Once inside, Bishop reveals that he was born in the detention center and has been held there most of his life. When Professor X notices another cell, different than the rest, he asks Bishop about it. He claims that the cell was for Wolverine, who was caught when he broke into the detention center looking for Master Mold. He was kept tied up since the machines were afraid of him and his powers. Even after Master Mold went into hiding, Wolverine kept coming back for Bishop and helped him. Not long after that, they arrive outside the data center, but as soon as they enter the room, the door closes behind them. Bishop tells the mutants that they have less than a minute to complete their mission and find their way out. He then contacts Marrow and tells her to send Rover, but to everyone's surprise, she betrays them and walks away with Rover, refusing to use him as bait. However, as they hear explosions behind them, Rover expresses his desire to go back for their friends. Meanwhile, Bishop and the other mutants rush out of the detention center so that the Vanisher can teleport them, while Hellion carries the device with the data. All of a sudden, several Sentinels begin attacking them, and no matter what Bishop or the others do, they are no match for them. Just when they are about to give up hope, Rover and Marrow arrive. Rover quickly takes down multiple Sentinels, but takes several hits as well. During the fight, when Marrow gets injured, Rover decides to stay back and sacrifice himself so that the rest of the mutants can escape. Despite not wanting to leave Rover behind, Vanisher takes Marrow with him and teleports her to safety. Sometime later, Professor X contacts Wolverine and informs him that a fiery tide will overtake Earth 8 days from now. As he assures Bishop that Wolverine will do what is necessary, the mutants remain unaware that Marrow is going to betray them again by revealing Professor X's location to Master Mold. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos, and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.